Hey guys, welcome to the ninth episode of The Metal Intent, the show where we talk to your favorite musicians, content creators, producers, and we get behind the intent in their music journey. So, ninth episode is a very special one. We're here with Ramon Gutierrez from Andromida. How are you, man?
Good man, how are you?
Cool. I'm doing pretty good. And it's cool that your episode is back to back with Daniel's because we
Oh
met in
yeah,
we met in similar circumstances playing Warzone during the pandemic.
yeah. Daniel's a homie for sure.
He is the homie, man. And we started that episode talking about how cool it was that the pandemic, whilst there was that time when everybody was kind of panicking and figuring out what was going on with the world, we managed to establish a connection and take advantage of the world being shut off to
Yeah,
connect with someone across the ocean.
it's
It
crazy,
was,
bro.
it was pretty cool. And I'm wondering if did the pandemic pose any opportunities to you the way this one happened?
I mean, personally, for me, it almost feels like I don't know. The pandemic, I feel in a way, kind of helped me. I
Hmm.
feel bad saying that, but because of the fact that people were, were home and stuff, that people have more time to discover new music and listen to Spotify and all that stuff. So I feel like it helped in terms of growth, especially with the way that I put out music. Doing the 1 month or the one song a month type thing.
Yeah.
So having that like constant release of content coming out while people are home for the majority of the time, I feel like that really did help me. So
That's cool. I relate. I do relate because I at least did notice a shift in the audience's attention. There's it's like if there's a little bit more consistency because people were at home. So you dropped the video and people just watched more. I did find
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, because people want something to do, while they're stuck at home. They don't want to be bored, and so I feel like during that time, if you were a content creator, I feel like you could probably relate to that in general because people are going to be consuming more content since they're not able to work or whatever
No.
the case may be.
Right. It was something to take advantage of and not let it get you bored. I think it's interesting because you and I know we both took advantage of it. We worked hard during that year
Yeah,
and up to now. But I think it's catching up to me only now. That only now am I starting to feel kind of bored and kind of what everyone was feeling back in March through now. Now everyone's starting to think about open up, and now I'm starting to think about getting bored. I don't know.
that's funny because I feel like I've been kind of feeling that too.
Okay.
Where I think I don't know if it's boredom or if it's just feeling like burnt out, I guess, from from putting all that time in.
Right.
So yeah, so this past month has kind of been a little bit slow for me in terms of like being productive, just because I think I have been feeling that kind of burnout. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of um well, I wouldn't say I've been doing a lot of like gaming and stuff. Well, kind of, but I've been streaming and stuff. So just
Cool.
to so that it's like still going like towards something. I'm not like
Yeah.
completely wasting my time.
Right. I get it. I've always been. It's always that question of, am I burnt out, or do I just need to change and try to do something different?
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
been my recent struggle. So it's good to see that someone else who kind of lives the same life is going through the same thing. Cool, man. All right. So the main reason people will have heard about Ramon is Andromeda. It's your musical project. Very good
Yeah.
musical project. I'm biased. I like Andromeda and I like your
Thank you,
music.
dude.
No
Thanks,
problem.
man. I appreciate
I'm
that.
really wondering how does Andromeda start for you? How do you start wanting to get your music out there like probably most of the listeners of this podcast?
So for me, Andromeda started back in like 2016, right?
Mhm.
So back then, it's kind of funny because part of the reason why I started going for the sound that I did was because of like video game music, right?
No.
So at the time, I was really into like Mass Effect,
Okay.
and I love the music in Mass Effect, and so essentially what I wanted to do back then was like combine metal and that like sci-fi kind of like feeling from the the Mass Effect soundtracks, and eventually over time that evolved into me going into like the more Doom style stuff that I've been doing, recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, Andromeda started because I wanted to merge that sci-fi kind of feel with metal music, because I'm like a huge sci-fi fan, and obviously I'm a huge metal fan. So I was like, and I didn't really at the time I didn't really see many bands or artists kind of doing that kind of thing, blending. Like now, I feel like it's a lot more common now to find that like cyberpunk-esque
Right.
mix between metal and synths and whatever. But back then, I didn't really find what I was looking for in that kind of area. So I was like, I might as well do it myself. And I had always wanted to like start a band, actually.
Yeah.
Like I tried for a while to start like an actual band, and I just couldn't find the members. So eventually I was just like, I'm just gonna do it myself then.
Yeah, cool. You took it in your own hands. That's cool. And that sounds like a very entrepreneurial thing almost, where you're like, I see this niche, it doesn't exist, I'm gonna create it. I like that.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. That's
cool.
cool.
The thing is too is like whenever I was starting it, I distinctly remember when I put out the very first song, which was Celestial. I remember seeing people commenting like, "Oh, this is like Mass Effect meets metal," and I was like, "Yes, that's exactly what I wanted it to be."
Okay, that's cool. And yeah, the way you say it, it's true that these days it's a lot more common that people try to blend that. And we could not have this podcast without talking about Mick Gordon and just how big the influence, not only in you, but like the entire space that the soundtrack to Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal actually is. Like, and as big as it is, we might still underestimate it. A lot of people take that in.
Absolutely. I feel like you could turn that style into like a whole, I mean, it kind of is a genre, but I feel like it's not. I feel like it could be a lot bigger of a genre, I guess, like just based on how, the Doom soundtracks have been received. Like people love that shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my opinion, I feel like, the whole synth guitar thing, like it's been going on for like a while, but not to the, I feel like Mick kind of revolutionized the way you could mix synths and guitars. And, especially with 2016, like, he built like he called it the Doom instrument, where he ran sine waves through like an array of like distortion pedals and all that stuff. And
we've all seen the damn video.
yeah, you've seen the video. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, that way of thinking of just like really trying to think outside the box when it comes to how you can blend synths with guitars is like, I don't know, I find that stuff fascinating. And so, whenever I did get into the Doom soundtracks, that really like opened up another like area for me to explore, which I've been doing the past year.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like because of that, I feel like I've really honed in the sound that I really want to go for, just because I know a lot more now about sound design and how to blend synths and guitars. And yeah, I feel like it's just opened a whole new chapter for me.
Absolutely, I agree. I can pinpoint a moment in Andromeda where it felt like you really took the leap, and now it was like, yes, this is guitar and electronic music, like at once. Well, before it really felt like guitar music with a sci-fi
like
layer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, now it feels like it's a proper mix instead of like a metal song with sci-fi layers.
Yeah, exactly. I would agree with that too, and I could probably pinpoint exactly where the switch kind of happened. I think the first song that I released with the intent to really blend the two together was Isolated. That was like Isolated, and then the Pathogen Downfall came right after that, and it was like those two where you can kind of really hear the switch over to the the heavier blend of the two. And especially now with like my recent stuff, it's like I basically treat the synths as like an actual like a whole nother, like I guess another band member, you could say.
Yeah, like another guitar.
versus before it was like, yeah, just the layers, or backtracks or stuff like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Is isolated the one that you play in C, like low C?
Yeah, yeah, it
Okay,
is.
just to see if I remember the what song it was correctly. Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty cool, and that did signify a change. That's awesome. But video games. That's interesting because more recently, again, same point. A lot of people have been, oh yeah, video game soundtracks, this and that. Just because there's now Mick Gordon, you have a metal video game soundtrack to reference. And I
Yeah.
talk to producer people, and a few of them do say, people say, oh, I want the Mick Gordon mix with this and the this. So they literally say, I'll have the Mick Gordon, please. It's how influential it actually is, which is crazy. But so you talked Mass Effect. What I haven't listened to the Mass Effect soundtrack, and I'm wondering, what do you like about it? And what about other video game soundtracks that inspire you?
Okay, so as far as the like Mass Effect soundtrack, so the Mass Effect soundtrack has like, it's like have you ever seen Blade Runner?
Yes.
The Blade Runner movies? Okay, so it kind of has like that kind of feel to the soundtrack,
Yeah,
like a kind of like, yeah, like almost like 80s like
old school
synthwave kind of thing
synths,
going
yes.
on. Yeah, it has that kind of vibe, and then mix in with like orchestral stuff, and so it has that very that kind of old school sci-fi feel.
I see.
And I really love that sound, and that's what like got me into wanting to learn how to do synths in the first place, was because of the Mass Effect. And then like Mick Gordon just like pushed me into like really like, all right, I need to really crack down on the synths.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Mass Effect vibe is what like got me into wanting to mix synths and orchestrals, and you know but yeah, I love that feel. It feels like very every time I listen to the Mass Effect soundtrack, like even if I had never played the games, it feels like I'm exploring, and I love the feeling that it gives me. It feels like you're exploring.
Yeah,
And
I know the feeling. Like I have my own little references, which I grew up. My first video game experience was sitting on my dad's lap as a baby as he played Half-Life 1. That was my first gaming experience. And
that's awesome.
it is pretty cool. And then he played Half-Life 2. And man, Half-Life 2 is like when you love a book so much that you like read it every year. It's not that I play Half-Life 2 every year by any stretch of the imagination, but the most recent time that I've played, I went into the soundtrack, paying attention to the soundtrack. And it's exactly what you say, where especially if you play the game and then you go back to just the soundtrack and you can relive the feeling of exploring the game when you're listening to the soundtrack. And it makes sense that if Mass Effect has the Vangelis vibe of the detuned old school synths, of course that Half-Life had to have this dystopic or dystopian feeling, like almost trip hop beats, and then this kind of fucked up feeling of people being left on the outside of an evolving society. So in a different sense, I get what you mean about how I feel to the Half-Life 2 soundtrack.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the beauty of like of video game soundtracks and movie soundtracks, is that they're instrumental, but they have to convey a certain feeling, right?
Oh yeah.
And so when you listen to these soundtracks, it's like you're able to. It puts you in that mindset of whatever the game or the movie is trying to be. And
yeah,
I feel like that's something that's like a little bit underappreciated, is how those soundtracks can do that. Because like when I like I said, when I listen to a Mass Effect like song, part of the soundtrack, I feel like I'm in that universe, right? And I love when music can do that, when it can take me to like a different like a different
feeling.
world, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. It's cool because video games and movies have a world, have a visual world for you to reference, but our music doesn't. We just have the audio. So we are guiding someone to to a universe that they don't have necessarily visual reference of. I'm wondering for Andromeda, what is this universe? Something about space, something about
It started out as like as kind of like a space kind of world, I guess. Especially at the start, I was at that time I was very very influenced by Mass Effect, so I was going for that very otherworldly kind of sound and wanting to make people feel like they're like exploring the galaxy almost.
Yeah.
So eventually that kind of evolved and evolved, and I feel like more so now it's I would say it's still in the realm of sci-fi, but I feel like so the cool thing about the music that I put out is part of it is like I like to have the music kind of depict what the art like put you in the feel of what the artwork of the music
you have great artwork.
So the two go together, so that basically I want it to feel like I want the listener to be able to look at the artwork and listen to the music and kind of build this like mental image in their head of like what's going on. So like with the album Hellscape, right? If you look at the artwork, it's like this dude against there's like a horde of demons, and obviously that album is very very doom inspired.
Yeah.
But when people listen to that soundtrack, I want them to feel like like they're being taken through this journey of fighting hell basically.
Cool. Yeah. So you do take advantage of the little visual medium that we have, which is a square picture.
Exactly.
It can say a lot. So very cool. All right. You touched on something that's interesting that you have touched on before, and I always like it and laugh the way you present the topic about being instrumental. And Ramon famously has a Facebook like cover photo of a comment where someone said, instrumental instant dislike or something.
Yeah. So it's a no vocals instant dislike.
That's exactly what it is, man. What's your thought about that? Presented with that, what do you think that person is feeling? What about instrumental music? It's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, as humans, I feel like as humans we relate to the voice the most, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why people gravitate to music with vocals so much, is because of that human element, and the lyrics and things like that grab people. Like whenever the average person, when they think of their favorite song, they're usually thinking of like the hook, right, or the chorus of that song. But I agree that music with vocals is great, and there's no disputing that. But I also think that instrumental music is a bit underappreciated, and for the fact that you don't have the lyrics there to explicitly tell you what's going on, right?
Right.
So that leaves room for interpretation or imagination, for the listener for them to allow the music to make them feel a certain way, and for them to get lost, I guess. I feel like it's easier to get lost in thought and in imagination with instrumental music than it is with music with lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I really like about instrumental music, is that like I said, it can take you to it can make you feel like like you're somewhere else basically.
Yeah, cool. I see a lot of people relating to that, because listeners of this podcast always, of course, they like progressive music and definitely instrumental music, and the likes of You and Intervals or Pliny, bands that do not have vocals as a resource. And I think that's a great argument. It almost comes back to the parallel of the book versus the movie, where in the book you imagine the characters' voices and you imagine the visual space. That's
a perfect analogy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like, Cyberpunk 2077 and Blade Runner 2049. If you picture the cities in those places, you have the look. But if you the first line in the book that inspired all of the cyberpunk things, which is the Neuromancer by I forgot his name. Of course, I forgot his name. The first line is something about the sky was tainted a dead television blue, or something like that.
Yeah, that's a crazy line.
It's way better than what I just said. I'm paraphrasing, but does it not put you in the spot?
Yeah, it does. It's like that. I don't know when I think of like what did you say, a dead television blue?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a crazy way to describe it.
Because he uses television, which puts you in the futuristic space already. He uses something artificial, not real light, like artificial light, but it's coming from the sky.
Yeah, that's such a crazy way to put it.
Yeah,
and the thing about that too is like, it gets your imagination going, right? And you don't have like the actual thing to look at.
Yeah,
and that's again, so that goes back to the instrumental thing. It
makes sense. Like I imagine something and you imagine something else, but the vibe is there, and each of us imagine what we want to relate to the most.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pretty cool. All right, man. I'm curious about something that you've touched on and we've touched on together, but you never really explained. You are legally blind. This is correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So what does that comprise you? I see you move your eyes off. If people are watching on YouTube, they'll see it too. I'm just wondering how serious it actually is, how much it affects you.
So the condition that I have is called nystagmus, and it's the shaking of my eyes. I've had it since birth. So growing up with it, I don't really notice the shaking per se, unless I stare at something for like a really long time. Like if I like stare at a certain object, then I'll start noticing the shaking. But just kind of looking around and stuff, I don't really notice it that much. It's more so like, I mean, it does affect my vision because I can't see very far, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm legally, I can't drive. And, if I wanted to join the military or anything, I couldn't do that either.
Yeah.
So, so obviously it affects me. But the way that I like work around it, I guess, is, I'll usually try to make like text on like my phone or my computer, I'll try to enlarge it in some way.
Okay.
Or like, when I'm using like Google or something, like the browser, I have it zoomed in,
cool.
a good bit so that I can actually, so I'm not like straining my eyes on the computer.
Yeah.
But so the funny thing about it though is even so, even if I make the like the words and everything bigger, right, I still have to be like close up to the computer. Like the best way to describe it, I guess, is like after a certain cutoff point, like no matter how big text is or whatever, I can't really read it.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wondering how much that actually affected you, and it's weird. I always feel weird touching on these points. It always feels insensitive, but
no.
It's I think it's good to prove a point that even to me myself, that sometimes I'll feel not motivated to pick up the guitar or try to write something or try to continue my YouTube videos because of very, very minor stuff, that sometimes you let something very minor get to you. And you're out here operating a DAW where you're literally sometimes forced to look away. Like you're forced to look away at the screen, and you're still putting out music every single month. And I at least like to hear that. I don't know if the audience cares to hear for that, but that does inspire me in some way. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad. That's, I don't find it insensitive when people ask me like that. That's why I've made it public in the first place, is because, I want people to know that, that you can, like, if you set your mind to it, you can do it. Like, I've had this condition that, that messes with my ability to see properly, but I still put the work in, and I still do what I can to get where I want to be. And, obviously that's paid off, it's paid off and continues to pay off.
Yeah.
And, I want people to know that, like, the only thing really holding you back is going to be you. So
There you go. Yeah, that's all I wanted to hear. That's a great bit. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, have an interesting note here about more of the on the content creator side and just producing and releasing your own stuff. Something that we all need to do as musicians these days, especially if you're your own self-contained band, solo project, publish everything, which is a situation that more and more people find themselves in these days. That is very liberating and also very, there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work involved.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've talked enough about, I mean, you can never talk enough about it, but about the creation and the inspirations and what in the end inspires you to make it is very important. But then the strategy is also very key. And one thing that I like to point out that you started doing, and if you have any thoughts about, is your release schedule. Because from a certain point, you switch from EPs and albums to a recent strategy of doing one song every single month. How's that worked out first?
So for me, I find that it's worked out great because of the fact that I'm, an online musician pretty much. I don't play live at the moment or anything. So, so you don't really have those live shows, there to fall on and to keep you relevant. So you have to find another way to do that. But what better way to do that than to release new music, right?
Yep.
So personally for me, there's two things that I've really found, doing it this way is that one, obviously, I feel people respond better to it because, you're giving them bite-sized content over a more consistent period of time versus a huge chunk.
Yeah.
And then, disappearing for like a year, right?
Right.
And while albums themselves, like I don't want to take anything away from albums because albums do have their place, I think.
We love albums.
Being able to tell a story, over however many songs the album is going to take, there's something very special about that that you can't take that away from an album. But at the same time, you can tell that same story over a period of months, right? Releasing a new. It's almost like doing like TV, right? Versus a movie,
right?
Like a movie is like an album, and a TV would be like releasing the bite-sized pieces of music over a period of time. That's the kind of way that I look at it. So like I said, I feel like people respond to it a bit better just because of the nature of streaming, and people are constantly, with Spotify especially, people are constantly finding new music, and so to try and keep up with that, I think it's good to release singles often.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing too is I hate waiting to put out. I hate sitting on music for a really long time because I'll make something cool and I'm like, man, I have to wait to put this out. So I find it more enjoyable for myself to actually do the whole song a month type thing because I don't have to wait a whole year to drop to drop
a banger
music to drop something that I'm like super hyped about.
Yeah, man, I really like that point because a lot of people, when they get romantic about the EP format or the album format, have you even considered that you yourself might enjoy more working on a single basis? And if you enjoy it more, you're gonna make better art. Have you considered? That's actually great.
That's something that I definitely noticed like pretty early on is that being able to put out singles I was just having a lot more fun with it just because of the fact that I was able to see the response to it a lot faster, and so that just motivated me even more. So it's kind of the cycle of of putting something out and then being motivated to do it again and again. So I feel like that's part of the reason why I'm able to do it on such a consistent basis is because whenever I put something out, I get the flood of like messages and stuff that's like, man, this is fucking sick.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I got to put something else out again.
Cool. Yeah, you get that feedback loop way more frequently.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If it were the scientific process, you would rather have feedback every 1 month than every 2 years. Just you would.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
exactly it.
pretty interesting. I was also just thinking in my mind about some people that can get more bitter about it. Well, they'll say, "Yeah, the audience's attention span is that of a goldfish. Everything's going down the drain." Well, consider this: you're not special. Your own attention span is also going down the drain. So you yourself will like and benefit from more frequent releases.
Yeah, I feel like, and I don't know, with streaming and the internet, I feel like I feel like it's I don't know, to me it's a good thing, I guess, to be able to release music in a more consistent fashion.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know, I feel like doing it that way it's going to make it easier for you in the long run. Just because, like I said, it keeps you relevant, right? And
Yes.
every time you drop, like every time I drop a new song, I get new listeners.
You grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the game that we're playing. And people, I've argued this a ton of times on the podcast, that if people want to get romantic about a certain format and not give up that, fine. Just know that you also give up the audience because you're doing something in a way the audience does not consume it. If you're fine with that, and you really, really want to make an 80-minute prog album, by all means, because that's what some people want to do. That's the kind of things that they love. Absolutely fine. But if you make bangers, you don't have to join 12 of them to release one. You can release just one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I said, you can't take away the special
virtue
things
of the album.
Yeah, you can't take that away from the album. But with that, the flip side of that is, the way singles tend to play out with the way people consume things. And yeah, that's something that I've argued a lot too when it comes to like because people ask me like advice on release schedules, things like that, because they see my growth,
Yep.
And I always tell them the same thing, if you want to, with the way streaming is today, if you want to grow, do singles, at least for a good while before putting out an album.
Yeah.
Like I wish that I would have done the whole singles thing like when I first started. I'd probably be bigger than I am now if I had.
Yeah.
But back then I was also stuck in the way of thinking of like, oh, I've got to do, one single, and then I'll do, and then release like an album. But yeah, if I would have done singles from the start, I definitely would be further than I am now. And I feel like it's important whenever you're just starting out to be even more consistent. Like I don't think it's that beneficial to just drop an album when you are just starting out, because no one knows who you are.
Yeah.
So you want to have that consistent content stream going out so that people, start finding your stuff, and you start growing. And then once you've got like, a decent fan base going on, you've got a little community of people that like your music, then you can do like an EP or an album or something. I feel like that's probably, like, if you're still going to do the album thing, I feel like that's the way that you should do it, is to start with singles for a good while till you build, a good base, and then you can, do albums.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the blueprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. If someone like you says, if I had done this in this format, I would be in a different place than I am now. That is a lot of proof. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. Singles is the way.
Yeah, absolutely. In this day and age, and if it's interesting, I find myself thinking about that a lot. Like, why do people have a problem with it? I think about it often. It often doesn't make sense. It's kind of irrational. It kind of feels like just a fear of change from what's familiar. but without really considering it. Because, like you said, we can't take away the virtue of the album and of telling us a story throughout a few songs. But we also can't take away the disadvantages of the album.
Yeah, that's also true.
You cannot take away any of them, where you have to wait a lot longer to do it in a world where the consumer just wants more often, thanks to the way that we're consuming. And at the end of the day, it always comes down to authenticity. I say this every podcast, and here it applies in this manner. If you don't resonate with the format, don't do it. But don't go whining that you can't accept the audience that was willing to consume that different format. You're gonna have to take whatever you're given.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, interesting topic. Anyhow, yeah, I always have the topic to round out the podcast of inspirations. We've already touched on a lot about video game soundtracks, and that's very interesting. And I'm wondering if there's any, since we touched on the more cinematic side of it, if there's any more traditional band inspiration that you do have in terms of music.
Yeah, so I would say a big one right now is probably Northlane.
Yes. They also tying in with the synths. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I feel like, I mean, I've always been into Northlane. Like I got into them way back, in Singularity.
Yeah, in the metalcore days. Yeah.
And whenever they dropped that album, that's when I was really into them for a while. Whenever they dropped that album. But yeah, but in these, with their new sound going on, that whole like cyberpunk type thing, they're definitely a big influence on me, I would say right now.
Cool.
Let's see. I've been listening to a lot of more electronic music recently.
Nice.
So I've been really into synthwave. So I would say a synthwave artist that I really like right now his name is Anzo.
Okay.
And so his stuff I definitely feel like it's been influencing me a bit.
How do you spell it? How do you spell it?
Anzo.
Oh, with an A. Okay, I'll check that out. Cool.
Yeah, check out the song Colony. That's probably my favorite one right now.
Colony. Let's do it. I love the shout outs to music. Recently, I found out about an artist called Cell Dweller.
I love Cell Dweller.
Yeah, because a friend of mine, shout out Adrien, he also does a lot of guitar and synth, and he's also very video game inspired and horror movie inspired as well. He put that on an Instagram story. And it was just like the guy screaming, and then a hard trance drop, and I'm like,
I love Cell Dweller, dude. Cell Dweller is fucking sick.
I checked out a few songs.
I would say that's another influence on me too, Cell Dweller.
I would say so. If it makes sense that you would have heard that type of music, it is really, really cool.
Yeah, let's see. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Actually, let me open up my Spotify.
Yeah, that's what Daniel did the last episode. It's always cool to see what you've been listening to recently.
Oh, I'm gonna have to drop Spirit Box in here.
Oh,
obviously.
Yeah, of course. Shout out to the man. I've always said, like, I'm so happy that they now look as big as they sound. Shout out to Spirit Box.
I know, right? Spirit Box is fucking great. I love Spirit Box.
Hell yes.
My boys in Nevertell, I've been listening to them a lot. They're like it's kind of like this cool mix of like R&B and rap and rock music. It's almost like a new age Linkin Park, and it's fucking dope. I love it.
Yeah, in the same way that I would say the same way that there's this amount of people that are starting to bridge electronic music. There's this amount of people that are starting to bridge new metal back into
I have seen a resurgence in new metal too.
And it's interesting because in pop music, if you've noticed the pop acts recently, it's 80s nostalgia that's coming back as well.
Yeah, I have noticed it. Yeah.
It's The Weeknd. It's the latest John Mayer song. If you've heard that, like it's all 80s. So I think we're rolling back a cycle. Like the cycle is fulfilling.
Yeah. It's kind of why I think that's part of the reason why I think rock and metal is kind of on the come up right now, is because of
Oh yeah,
you know,
we've been in the
back in
slump,
the
so now we're
yeah, we're kind of coming back in the come up, right? Like in the '80s when, you know, rock was like, you know, and you know, you had like hair metal and stuff back then was like, you know, the
right.
big thing. But yeah, so I feel like metal is a bit on the come up right now, which I think is great.
Yeah, man, we might have the 2030s for ourselves. That's crazy.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, like the nature, everything is cyclical. Even if you think about, oh, I don't know, about fashion, like stuff like bootcut jeans,
Yeah.
fucking coming back. Stuff like big colors, oversized shit in shoes, again coming back, and it does work in cycles, and
Yeah,
we start
I
to
would agree with that.
we start to notice that in music too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if like, you know, 10 or so years, 15 years down the road, you know, when, because I feel like, you know, singles is going to be the way people start releasing stuff, you know, I feel like that's going to be the trend for a good while. But
Yeah.
eventually I feel like it's going to get to a point where we start seeing the come up of albums again, where people start to crave that
The big
feeling
thing.
of the big bodies of music, and, you know, being taken on a journey, you know, in one, you know, in a group of songs. So I, you know, like I said, I don't think albums are going anywhere. You know, they might be a little bit on the down low for a bit, but I feel like they'll come back up eventually. But as far as like other music or other artists, you know, speaking of pop music, Ariana Grande, fucking love Ariana Grande.
Cool.
The Weeknd is another good one.
Yeah.
Let's see, Lights. Lights is a pretty good artist.
Yeah. Ubiquitous names. For sure.
Obviously, I know I love Plenty.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, Era's new album is pretty sick.
It's what I've been listening to the most, for sure.
Really, Era's new album?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cannot stop. Yeah.
Oh, and another like kind of electronic artist, Swarm. He's like he's kind of crazy because he's like the alternative version of like of an EDM artist. He's definitely influenced by metal. Like I think he's done remixes of like of metal songs. But yeah, his stuff is crazy. He's got some sick drops.
Yeah, I think you have shouted out Swarm, and I have checked them out like a long time ago because you said, yeah,
Really?
it had that. Yeah, I think it had like the Cell Dweller vibe.
Yeah, his stuff is great. I love Swarm.
Nice, man. That's cool. I think that's a good place to end the podcast. So Andromida, your project. What's the name of the latest song?
The latest song is called Artificial Life. But a new song is dropping on the 25th. So.
Oh, all right. What day is it today? Oh, 12th. This will come out before, but people should be following you by then.
Hell yeah.
Hell yes, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me.